Welcome everyone to the Justice Pillar webinar here in October of 2024. We are here with an exciting discussion from some very important people who are going to share a wonderful program here in the state of Arizona. So welcome. My name is Tiffany Thornhill. I'm the program manager in the Congressman Ed Pastor Center for Politics and Public Service at Arizona State University. I'm also the chair of the Justice Pillar here for the Commission of African American Affairs. First, I just wanted to give a warm, lovely welcome from the Pastor Center and give honor to the Congressman, to the late Congressman Ed Pastor, for all he did for Arizona, for all he continues to do for Arizona, and for the platform that he has provided for us here tonight. Without this center, without the Congressman's legacy, we truly wouldn't be here. And so it is an honor to be able to serve the commission through this space and through this center. Before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and read us a poem to help us kind of set the stage for what we're about to experience tonight. The poem is called A Neurodiverse Symphony by Demi White. In life's symphony, my note dances astray, a unique tale unfolding, forging my own way. Within the labyrinth of a conformity's grip, I defy the mold, embracing my own script. Echoing demands for mimicry and rhyme, rejecting the beauty of a diverse paradigm. No room for asymmetry, for quirky glee, yet proudly I stand in neurodiverse esprit. For I am me, not a shadow, not a clone. I am an outcast, but my identity is known. Amidst conformity's echoes, a decree, I cherish my difference, unapologetically free. In this symphony of existence, let hearts align, celebrate the song of our exquisite design. A tale of diversity, a journey so grand, embracing each other hand in hand. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to that poem. Thank you so much for all of our participants here today. Thank you to everybody who is watching the replay as well. I'll pass it over to you, Commissioner Sherwood.
Thank you, Tiffany, and thank you to the Pastor Center for graciously hosting this. And thank you to everybody turning in and to our esteemed panel of guests who you're all going to hear from about a very interesting, exciting, and much needed program in Arizona. If you haven't heard of it, if you're just hearing about it, it's called the Blue Envelope program. We'll hear all about it, but in short time. But you know what it is simply an envelope. If you or someone you love, someone you know, is on the autism spectrum or is living with a neurodivergent issue, prevent or have create issues in communication. This envelope can, but you are a driver. This envelope can hold your information, your registration, your proof of insurance, and then if you're ever in a situation where you are pulled over, it provides a very instantaneous visual cue that hopefully avoids any sort of misunderstanding that might escalate a situation into something dangerous if you that might be misperceived perhaps as maybe not answering questions or unfortunately belligerence or anything like that. And so, but this was a program that was brought forward by a constituent to legislators. So we have those guests on there. But before that, I want to allow my partner on the Justice Pillar and on the Commission of African American Affairs, Diane Post, to say a few words of greeting, and then we will get into the conversation.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Sherwood. I just want to say thank you to everyone here tonight who is speaking and also those who are attending. This is a really useful and valuable program. We need the public to know about it so that it can be utilized. And we will ask you, we're hoping that you will help us get this word out to your contacts, your groups, and help everyone in that way. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, and with that, Tiffany, I think we want to invite our panel on, and I'll allow each of you to introduce yourself. But we have with us we'll go around the room, but welcome Representative Cesar Aguilar from Phoenix, Senator Flavio Bravo, Representative Quante Cruz, Sergeant Eric Andrews from DPS, Warren Trent, who is the Public Information Manager at DPS, and Amanda Kendall, who I'll let you give your title because I missed it, but she is the person in the know about this program at ADOT and MVD. So if you each want to say hello, and then I'll start with the questions. Let's start with you, Senator Bravo.
Thank you. Great to be here with you all. Flavio Bravo, State Senator for District 26, representing Phoenix and Glendale.
Representative Aguilar.
Yeah, how's everyone doing? Cesar Aguilar, also serve alongside Senator Bravo in the same district. Nice to meet everyone.
Representative Cruz.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Representative Quante Cruz, and I serve with these also gentlemen in Legislative District 26.
And Amanda, introduce yourself.
Good evening. I'm Amanda Kendall. I'm the Stakeholder Relation Manager for ADOT MVD.
Sergeant Andrews.
Good evening. I'm Sergeant Eric Andrews. I'm the Public Information Supervisor for the Arizona Department of Public Safety.
Welcome, and then Mr. Trent.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Warren Trent, I'm the Public Information Manager for DPS, and I look forward to having a fruitful, stimulating conversation.
Thank you so much. Now, in my other life, I'm the Communications Director for the House Democratic Caucus, so I work with these three lawmakers and help in the aspect of storytelling, and a good place to begin a story is at the beginning. And so I wanted to ask, start with you, Senator Bravo, and also Representative Aguilar, but Senator Bravo, like a lot of good ideas at the legislature, this one came in with a constituent who brought forward an idea. So tell us a little bit about how that happened and about Mr. Javier Medrano, who brought this forward to you.
Yes, last spring, around March, Representative Aguilar and we received an email from a constituent named Javier Medrano, who was reaching out to us on behalf of his son. He was thinking about his son's future interactions with law enforcement, given that his son is on the autism spectrum. And Javier had already done a lot of the research on his own. He heard about initiatives that had passed in other states. I think specifically he mentioned the state of Colorado, Connecticut, and I think Massachusetts. And he wanted to know what would be possible in the state of Arizona. So he does live in District 26. So we were grateful, right, that he even reached out to us. Technically, the bill deadline had already passed to introduce a bill that session. But I also want to give a lot of gratitude to our assistant, Laura, because she, we get so many emails every single day, and she flagged this, and it was her and Representative Aguilar who basically said we need to set up a call with this individual and make sure that we follow up. And what ended up, I'll also allow Representative Aguilar to speak to the process, but we ended up having a stakeholder meeting where we invited Javier to come to the Capitol, and so many people arrived. I mean, more people than we expected even. We didn't realize how many people in the government affairs community had a loved one with autism, and I will honestly say people showed up that they weren't even really on the list. But I remember leaving that meeting with a Glendale police officer who just kindly pulled me aside and said, if you have 20 people in the room, you're going to get 20 different perspectives and 20 different ideas. And he just said my recommendation, would be really trying to funnel all of these ideas together and think about what could be possible. But I'll also allow Representative Aguilar to speak to the process.
Sure, Representative Aguilar, to speak to the process, but also what was going through your mind when you thought like, why this might be needed, and what were you hearing that made you want to, step in and make something happen on this level?
Yeah, so to add to Senator Bravo's point, Javier himself also had or has autism. And so he basically talked to us about his experience and had told us that he had gotten pulled over before. And it's very hard for him to look eye to eye with the police officer So the police officer had pulled him out of his car, thought that he was under the influence, and then asked him if he was on any drugs, and he said no. And he said that after he had that experience happen to him, he wanted to make sure that that never had happens to anybody else, including his son, who is autistic as well. And so that once he told us that story, I mean, I've heard of instances of this happening in Phoenix, and even recently we've heard of a deaf person being attacked by law enforcement, and so when you see those instances happen, I think even within the conversation that we came from with law enforcement, it's like, what can we do better to make sure that we don't see things like this happen on the news? And so for Javier, he really wanted to have an autism indicator on a driver's license, and that was what most of the other states had done. But to Senator Bravo's point, we had a large stakeholder meeting. We probably had like 20 different organizations in there, and I think that was the benefit. It was very beneficial to have that, because we got to hear we got to hear all the criticism of what people were going to say. And so it basically prepared us well before to make sure that we had listened to everyone. And I mean, we got a lot of feedback. It was I didn't think this was going to be a very controversial bill, but it was very controversial because within the neurodiversity space, people don't want to have that be public record on your driver's license. That
an element of privacy that is in play here, right? So yes.
Yeah. So it was very important to some of the individuals in that room that was not on their license plate. And when we told them, well, it's going to be volunteer, so you don't have to get it on there, they still said, well, we don't, like half the room said we don't want that. And it was interesting to have Javier in there too, because this was something he wanted. But in having that space and conversation with everyone, I think this was very successful in the sense that we didn't have to go through a legislative process. We didn't have to put this on our IDs. And someone within ADOT, I can't remember who or who it was, but his own kid was autistic. And he had told us that when he brought this up to his own kid, his kid had told them that he didn't want this to be public information. And so even though they could, you could go and buy a drink, they didn't want to be discriminated if they gave their ID and then on the ID it said, oh, maybe they then start to receive some sort of discrimination.
Okay.
And so those were some of the conversations we had in that room. And then he was kind of the one that came up with this alternative idea of what about an envelope, so that you can put all your information in there. You give it to the police officer, and then it kind of gets flagged, and every law enforcement's trained on it. But when we left that room, we had Glendale police, we had Phoenix police and Mesa police, and they left that room wanting to do even more reform, and that gets into like a whole nother conversation on public safety, on how can you like find signs of someone with neurodiversity before you start interacting with them a certain way.
Right, and you referenced an incident. We should probably get it out there. It's obviously probably a topic for an entirely different forum. It wasn't a traffic stop, but it was very much in the news in the last few weeks of the arrest of a gentleman named Tyrone McAlpine outside of Circle K, in which he was deaf. He and also has cerebral palsy, and I think I'm speaking outside the circumstances of the case, but probably was not able to understand the commands that were being given. Was arrested in a pretty intense way, and has since had those charges dropped. So it only just sort of underscores how quick decisions in a tense and dangerous situation can escalate, and so the hope is with a program like this, there will be instances where it doesn't get to that level when there might be a misunderstanding potentially.
Yeah, no, and I can tell you there's a after leaving that meeting, I felt a huge need felt from the police departments. Like they want to do something better to be able to like get better training, or how can we know, or how can we get a sign that this is someone with a disability, or this is someone with neurodiversity. And I was like, well, this is like a whole nother conversation to get into. Like you said, yeah.
But you got that off the ground. You're moving forward, Mr. Bravo. Before I go to Amanda to talk from ADOT, is there anything else you want to add to that process? Ultimately, you didn't drop a bill, right? It was decided that maybe this could be handled internally, and I think that we have someone here from ADOT MBD to describe that process. But ultimately, it didn't require legislation, correct?
Right. The University of Arizona department, I believe the police department and also ADOT worked together and gave us the positive news that they decided to adopt this idea. So months had passed, and went wonderful when we received the news. And Callie Jones, I know from the Senate, worked with you, Robbie, to share a video. We invited Javier back to the legislature to record the video. I'll make sure we get a copy to everybody here. And we asked him, instead of us taking credit for it all, right, we asked him share a bit of why he brought this to us and what it means to see it go into effect. And so,
and this was in March, which I probably
Yes.
should have mentioned up top. That's when the program ultimately went live. We got notification that that this was happening. There would be training out there, and so that's when we shot that video together. And so now I want to kick it over to Amanda. I don't know if you were a part of those conversations, but they described a lot of partners at the table trying to talk about how best do we do this. There's pluses and minuses to different strategies. How did we settle on the blue envelope program, and what kind of processes went into to making sure this was the right move for the agency and for the state.
Yeah, so, and I was not, unfortunately, at those initial meetings. At the meeting that they've been referencing, I had a conflict that day, so was not able to be there. However, our director, Eric Jorgensen, was there. And we had already been talking about, even prior to that, a lot of around this topic. We knew we wanted to do something for this population of our motoring public. But he was at a conference in Florida as we were having these conversations as well, and came across the Blue Envelope program, specifically from the state of Connecticut, so the Southern Connecticut State University. And he brought that back, and he said, this is it. This is what we want to do. So really at that point, then it was my job to get the right people to the table. So we knew that we really wanted to have kind of a three-prong approach, right? So we needed ADOT as the regulator of the program, and as we issue the driver license, that piece of that. But we knew we also wanted to partner with law enforcement. So we brought in the Arizona Department of Public Safety. And the last piece we needed was a clinical piece. We all have great intentions, and everyone that we brought in has a personal effect from the autism community, whether it be loved ones or whatnot. So I found Jennifer Castix at the University of Arizona, and through our conversations with her, then that also brought in Dr. Maltman and UAPD. So UAPD was in the process of already looking at this program as well, and we're looking to implement it. So we all partnered together to figure out what the best way was to put this program together. And what we wanted to make sure we were doing was having a robust program that would be able to be used throughout the state, as opposed to piecemealing it. So over several months with some meetings, we finalized what our blue envelope would look like in Arizona, what our program would look like, and we had our first training for law enforcement at UAPD on April 28th, I believe, of this year, and that's when the program finally launched.
And what kind of feedback have you gotten, and how is your department going about letting people know this is out there, other than programs like this? But is there any sort of outreach to let people know that this is available, and where is it?
Yep, absolutely. So I initially, even early in April, before we had the first training, I attend the transition fair at the Arizona Autism Charter Schools. So we had information there. We've done some press releases. A lot of it is word of mouth by our partners. But the response has been nothing short of phenomenal. We currently have 13 law enforcement agencies that have the envelope available. 12 of our third-party motor vehicle companies have the envelopes available, as well as one particular driving school that has a program specifically designed for our neurodivergent population. I get calls and emails daily, not only from folks in Arizona and agencies in Arizona. We had a delegation here last month, I believe, from 17 different countries. And many of those have expressed interest in bringing the blue envelope to their countries. Chile was one of them. I've spoken with individuals from Vermont, Missouri, and again, from different law enforcement agencies across the country as well. So and talk to many parents and autistic drivers who are very excited about the program. And then just some, community outreach and additional trainings that we've done with Surprise PD. And I did a safe event with Gilbert Police Department and Gilbert Fire earlier this month as well.
Outstanding. And in the chat, if you haven't checked it and you're watching, is a website that I believe has it's your website, Amanda, that has links to resources, locations where you can pick one up. But it's essentially most in any MVD office, right? If you go in and ask for it.
Correct. At any of our
the
MVD
process?
offices statewide. Mm-hmm. The process to get one is very simple. An individual walks in and says to any employee, I would like a blue envelope, and they are handed a blue envelope. Any of our distributors, including our CSRs, our local offices,
And
the only instruction they have been given is, I'm sorry?
No cost, I'm assuming, or is there a cost?
Nope, there's no cost. It's completely voluntary. It is completely anonymous. We don't ask questions. And again, that is the only direction I give to any of our distributors is if someone wants a blue envelope, we hand them a blue envelope. We don't ask for proof of diagnosis. We don't ask for information. So it's as safe as we could possibly make it at this point.
Thank you so much. I don't know if this is more of a question for Sergeant Andrews or Warren Trent, but it might be for the sergeant. But like, they make it very clear on the website that the envelope will not get you out of a ticket if you're like blowing 75 through a 35-mile-an-hour zone or anything like that. That's not the intent of this. But it's to give a quick signal that this person is on the autism spectrum and may have some difficulty answering questions, and it's not for any other reason than that. But Sergeant Andrews, what was how has the rollout gone? Are you seeing these out on the road? Your agency probably more than any other is dealing with drivers, and so tell us what you guys are seeing and learning from this, and how's the training going?
Yeah, absolutely. So you are correct. We are starting to see these more and more as the neurodivergent population continues to grow. Obviously, not only troopers from our agency, but law enforcement officers from every agency nationwide are coming in contact with more of these individuals. The beauty of this program is its simplicity. The blue envelope shows on one side for the driver what they need to do and gives a very brief explanation of what's going to happen. And on the other side are directions for the officers and the troopers to understand, okay, even if you haven't gone through this training, it's very simple to understand what it means and what is going on. Also, I think it's important to note that not only is this blue envelope program just for the drivers of the vehicles, but anybody in the vehicle. DPS specifically has teamed up with an organization called Lawrence Institute, which is a school specifically for the neurodivergent population. And we have a trooper whose child goes there, and he has said personally, and he's given beautiful stories about this, about how powerful this program is. But through our training, we have invited individuals from that school, obviously completely on a voluntary basis, to come share their stories and explain to us as troopers what will we see. And it's all about that somebody may not react as we may expect. It's not wrong, it's not bad, it's just what we may not expect or what we may not see, 80% of the time on a standard traffic stop or collision, because this is not just for collision. So utilizing those partners to not only talk about their experiences, but in the training I went to that we had here in Phoenix, the family was there with their children in the training, and we got to see firsthand how this mom had two children that were both neurodivergent, both autistic, but had very different reactions to everything. So we're showing our troopers firsthand, whether it's through an actual I don't want to say that we're demonstrating it, but that they can see through those examples or through a video. So what we're doing is called a train the trainer, where we have groups from every one of our districts around the state come to a training class, or we have at least one, if not two people from every district come to the training class. And then once they've gone through the short class, they bring it back to their district, and they're responsible for training the rest of the troopers in their district. So it's already happened in all three bureaus of the state, Southern, Metro, and Northern. So it is statewide now for our agency, and being the state assistance agency to other agencies, anybody that wants to go through that training, we can provide that training as well. So, yeah.
You touched on something, and I think you might have one of the envelopes if you want to hold it up, but there's information on there that is interesting that has instructions for the driver. It's like a checklist of what everybody wants in a traffic stop is for it to be over, and everybody goes on their separate ways. If you have a citation, you deal with that. But I think everybody wants to go home afterwards, and so it has some basic instructions on best practices, like keep your hands on the wheel where everybody can see them when you tell the officer. I don't know if you want to go through a couple of those, but it seems like pretty good advice in general. And Sergeant Andrews, I think you might be on mute.
Sorry about that. So yeah, there are 6 basic steps for both troopers on one side and then for the drivers on the other side. So for the drivers on the autism spectrum, it says you will see red and blue flashing lights, and the officer may shine a flashlight into your car. Leave your hands on the steering wheel while answering the officer's question. Tell the officer, I have a blue envelope. When the officer tells you, slowly get the blue envelope and hand it to the officer. The officer will go back to the vehicle. You will wait for the officer until they come back. The officer will explain at the end of the stop and tell you when to leave. And it's important for us to give those directed responses, because if we're not direct with them, they may not understand what's going on. This is new for them. Me personally, having worked the road, very rarely did I come across the same person over and over. I really almost never came across the same person over and over. A traffic stop is usually the first time for a lot of these individuals. So we need to help them through that process because it's going to be a little harder for them to understand at times. And then for the police officer on the back, it explains individuals may display repetitive body motions or fidgeting and may have unusual eye contact. Individuals may exhibit signs of high anxiety, especially due to bright lights and loud noises. And an important note for that, when we train our officers and our troopers, we explain to them, hey, if they hand you a blue envelope, when you go back to the car, turn off your overhead lights, turn off the spotlight. Obviously, we don't want to put ourselves in an unsafe situation, but if we can reduce whether it's the noise from a siren, which shouldn't be going at that point anyway, but especially the bright flashing lights, if we can reduce or eliminate those stimuluses, that's going to make the conversation and that interaction with that individual that much healthier and that much better for both ourselves and that individual. So again, the process is very simple for our troopers and officers to understand. Again, even if they haven't gone through this training, this envelope explains everything very simply to make it a beneficial stop both for ourselves and for the motoring public.
Thank you for that explanation. I want to bring Warren into the conversation. I also want to pass on our gratitude to Chief Glover, who is a member of the Commission on African American Affairs. Would likely have probably been a part of this conversation if scheduling allowed. So we're really grateful that you two are here available on his behalf. But Warren, tell us how from your perspective in the public information officer, do you feel like that there's information is getting out? What can we do to help people become more aware that this is out there, and what kind of feedback have you been hearing about it on your end?
Well, so I put in the chat a link for the press release that we put out back in April about it, touting the program. I can tell you that, yes, Director Glover is wholeheartedly supports this program. When he made us aware that DPS was going to launch this, I mean, we jumped in head first. The media component of this, we're getting this out through media. There's been some media interest in it, and so Eric has been facilitating those outlets and letting them know, what's going on. And I can tell you that the feedback that we're getting, has just been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I know our program was modeled after, I believe, what Connecticut was doing or is doing, but here in Arizona, it's been fantastic.
Anecdotally, have you heard back from any particular instances that proof of concept that, hey, this works? This are you collecting any information like that or relaying? And do you hear anything?
I haven't personally. I have not. That information has not come across my desk yet, but I'm sure it exists. It just hasn't come across my desk.
No worries. Well, thank you very much. And we're moving along, and we'll have, questions a little bit later, but I wanted to bring in Representative Crews to this conversation. Representative Crews, I know, your boys are probably not yet old enough to drive, but you're a mother of three, and, bring in a parent's perspective that this is, what was your reaction when you saw a program like this was out there? To talk a little bit about, I'm on the Commission of African American Affairs. You might notice I am not African American. My sons, however, are, and there is something that in the African American community that I've learned from my adjacency in my relationships is known as the toss. Can you describe a little bit what that is? The conversations that you have with your children about what interactions with police can mean, and how to get through them and out the other end okay.
Yeah, and I'll speak as a individual on the spectrum as well. I do have three sons. I have two who are on the autism spectrum, and that makes the talk a little more complicated than say the talk that my mom had with me. The thing about being Black in America is that you have to prepare your children for all instances. And because we know that racism is real, we know that biases are real, we know that perception is reality in a lot of situations. You get that talk to prepare you for the things that may come. And so we're taught to keep your hands on the wheel, to say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, to be very, strategic with your movement, to make sure you don't make any sudden moves. I appreciate everybody's grace. Jeremiah is singing in the back, so if you hear that, that's my oldest guy. He's having a ball right now. And the thing about having young Black men on the spectrum is that you do have to prepare them from every situation, and knowing that there are some situations that you just cannot possibly prepare them for. I have one young man who they're both bright, but one who the eye contact is not happening. It doesn't matter what, how you talk to him, you can get right in his face and he's just not comfortable. He just doesn't do it. He was nonverbal for years. And while he can articulate himself well now, when he's nervous or is in a state of fight or flight or anxiety, even if I remember I got pulled over once over here on the 17, and he was totally freaked out. And I'm like, we didn't do anything wrong. Everything's okay. But just seeing that and seeing what they see on TV and in media and things like that, that concern is there. And so I was really happy to see this program. I wasn't a state rep at the time. I was a constituent of Senator Bravo and Representative Aguilar. And I love the program. And I think that it allows a communication to be passed between the driver or passengers and law enforcement in a way that everybody kind of, at one point, once we get, this gets rolling and people get used to it, the communication is there. You don't have to have a long, drawn out conversation about why you're a little awkward or why you're not making eye contact or why, you mentioned Tyron McAlpin, why he's, kind of raising his hands, and it might look like he's trying to do something, but he has cerebral palsy, and that's why. And so I love the program, and I love that that communication is there, because like I said, I've gotten pulled over and the lights have freaked me out for sure, but that's because I'm sensitive to them, and it's distracting, and I kind of like get in a frozen state. And I would have loved to have that, in 2007 when I got pulled over myself. So.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and we don't want to put our friends from law enforcement here on the spot. That's not what the purpose of this conversation is, but I did want to talk about what is a current reality and a fact of life. I hope that someday it's not, but it is a situation. So thank you for kind of taking us inside that process for with your family and sharing that.
And I think this envelope helps prevent some of that. That communication is like a automatic, thing. So thank you.
And I'll take it back to Sergeant Andrews before we go to the
Jeremiah,
question.
okay?
Okay. Because I used to, in my previous life, I was a newspaper reporter, and I covered police and fire, and from your perspective, like a traffic stop is also terrifying for you, if I understand correctly, right? It's the most dangerous situation that an officer faces, and so this in these situations where you're where the person is on the spectrum, has the blue envelope, is just one less situation that probably you are worried about. Everybody wants to get home at night. Am I correct?
Absolutely, yeah, and having this program and have it be so easy, like I said, makes it great for us, because communication is key in any of these situations. And if, as Representative Crews said, if somebody's raising their hands and I don't know anything, I'm going, okay, why are they raising their hands? What's going on? What are they planning? What are they thinking? But knowing that, oh, there's something else that's it's not nefarious at all. It's not within their control. That's great for me to know as a law enforcement officer.
Right.
And yeah, no, it's fantastic for us. Absolutely.
Well, thank you again. And then, Warren, were you about to say something? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in.
Yeah, I was going to say, dovetailing off of off the talk. Personally, I keep my registration and insurance card in my sun visor. I don't even put it in my glove box. That's it's a shorter distance, and I'm not reaching for something. So I feel more comfortable just doing that.
Certainly. Thank you so much. We hopefully maybe have some questions from the folks who are watching, but if we're not, or if there was something that came up, or you have if one of our panelists have any questions or anything else that they wanted to add that I may have forgotten to ask, please feel free to jump on, unmute, and speak to that before we go to questions. Representative Aguilar.
Yeah, if I could add one thing. While doing the research on this and seeing, all these different states, one of the interesting things that I found out about this is that 1 in 3 teens who have autism actually have a driver's license, and that's from the National Autism Society. And so there's a large number of people with neurodiversity driving. We just don't know about it. And so I thought that was super important. And there's definitely a bigger conversation to talk about. And with my interactions with law enforcement when we're talking about this, is that they do want to do more aside from just this. And there's a strong need for it. And I got to see that after having that conversation. But yeah, just wanted to add that.
Do you and your seatmates anticipate, continued conversations, maybe other aspects to this coming down the line?
Yeah,
I'm confident you're all three going to be reelected, so we'll be together in the session. So
yeah, we should be good. But I know those were some of the conversations that we were having where we were told in the autism community that the former governor used to have monthly meetings or quarterly meetings with the autism community on different issues that were coming up. And they would come up with issues that they wanted to bring up at the state. And I know that was something that we had talked about. We were trying to see if we want to do it under the governor's office, and then our Magali, our health policy person, suggested that we just do it ourselves. But we were so brand new to all of politics.
well, not anymore. So
yeah. So now after 2 years, I think we kind of have an idea of how the state ledge operates and what we can and cannot do. But I definitely think, and Senator Bravo has also introduced a license plate that he got passed. So we are continuing to work on this issues like this.
Well, thank you for speaking out for that community and staying engaged. Senator Bravo, is there anything else you want to add for that, or?
Just it'll be available in January, and that is it's a way to very publicly say that you support the autism community, and the funds raised from that plate will benefit SARC, the Southwest Autism Research and Resource Center. So there are so many great community partners that are doing this work, and I'm excited. The design itself was designed by somebody on this with the neurodiversity, and so I'm excited to see the final version after collaborating with Anthony Castleman, and just grateful to be here.
Thank you. Well, I don't, and Tiffany, unless I'm reading this wrong, I don't see any questions on there. I'm happy to direct them to anybody if they come through. But I do want to remind you that that this program is being recorded, and we want it to live on the commission's website. And so, for anybody that may have missed it, they can revisit the conversation and get the information. And so please, do help us spread the word if you're out there. And I hope that this has been of use to the folks who tuned in and watching. I really appreciate everybody taking the time to be with us tonight. So Tiffany.
Yeah, there is one question. So we had an attendee who was from a representative from the Division of Developmental Disabilities. And so I hope you guys were able to capture that information. If not, I'll make sure we send that out to everybody here on the panel. But the question is what is being done to educate the Division of Developmental Disabilities about this program? And has the education been out there so that the case managers do have this available to share with their clients? Is there any outreach specifically targeted to those types of organizations, specifically developmental disabilities?
So Tiffany, I would have to go back and look at the list of all the people I've spoken with. I believe I have had a conversation or two with someone from DD, definitely within DES for sure. I've also had several conversations with individuals from different organizations, again, the Arizona Autism Charter Schools. So I've collaborated with them. And then also working with, again, University of Arizona with Dr. Maltman and Jennifer Castix down there and the groups that they are connected with. So I have regular conversations. Again, I get emails and calls weekly, if not daily. Part of the other thing with this program that is important is the law enforcement training is very valuable and absolutely necessary. But there's also a second component to the training that DDD and organizations like that would benefit in being part of, and that's training the actual drivers that are on the spectrum. And so still working with Dr. Maltman and her team at University of Arizona and developing that piece of that training that, can include mock traffic stops with law enforcement. So they get as real world experience as possible in a very safe environment, with also having the therapeutic component there to help with, debriefing and making sure that it's safe and comfortable for our drivers who are on the spectrum. So that's a piece that we're still developing. But definitely, whoever the question was, and I think I saw it in there, but definitely reach out to me. I am always available to have these conversations to bring that training in.
Yeah, it was from Whitney at DES. I apologize. I was just looking on the wrong tab and didn't see that question. But everybody here involved there would be working for the state. So I would hopefully that you guys reach out, connect, and collaborate and can keep this program moving forward. So thank you, Whitney, for asking that question.
Another question. I'm just going to fire them off. Some of them are from me too, y'all. So another question is, we have representation from Arizona DPS here, but is this trickling down to the city police departments like Phoenix and Glendale and Peoria and the other departments, specifically because we did see Phoenix PD was the one who perpetuated the incident that happened most recently. And we're still on the tail, we're coming off the cusp of the report findings from the Department of Justice as well. So Sergeant Andrews, I saw you come off mute if you had anything to add to that.
Amanda might be able to speak into it more, but yes, I know that ADOT, I think actually Amanda actually mentioned that they've done stuff with Surprise PD. U of A PD is obviously down south, and they've already implemented the program. And we have made it known through DPS and through our leadership with leaders at other agencies that we have the training available for those agencies if they so desire. So it should be going out. But again, Amanda, I don't know if ADOT's doing more with the other agencies.
City?
Yeah, because
the city.
Sorry, go ahead.
Cities and towns were also one of the stakeholders in the meeting, and so they did get the information when it got released.
Yep, absolutely. And so at the initial training in Tucson in April, UAPD was there and several other agencies. We had individuals from Chandler Police Department there, Sahuarita, and also, ADOT's enforcement division. So they're very engaged in this. Surprise PD just hosted a training earlier this month. I apologize. And had, again, different agencies throughout the West Valley were there as well. Several other agencies have expressed interest in bringing the training. Gilbert PD, Chino Valley recently got the envelope. So the desire for more training is there. Again, we have 13 law enforcement agencies throughout the state who have the envelopes available, even without the training. And the program itself is not super complicated as far as that piece goes, but there's definitely a lot of interest in the training. I'm also talking with UAPD right now. We're wanting to get another session done, set up for down there as well. Hoping also to get a virtual component to that to maybe make it more available to the outlying, jurisdictions who can't get there in person.
Tiffany, there's one more question from Whitney. Would you like to read it, or should I?
You can go ahead.
This is also from Whitney Mickelson at DES. Says, are there any plans for creating similar for other envelopes similar for other disabilities besides autism, or is there a place in the blue envelope to note the specific disability? From my understanding, it's designed like for people on the autism spectrum, but it's not exclusive to that, right?
Absolutely. It is designed as, you know, the intent is for drivers on the autism spectrum. However, at the base level, the envelope itself is a visual representation that the stop may not be what, or the behaviors you're seeing, an officer may be seeing, is not what they would normally see, right, or expect to see. So it could be used by anybody with, you know, that is neurodivergent or has anxiety or, you know, a speech delay, that kind of thing. The state of Connecticut does have a green envelope for the hearing impaired. So there are definite conversations had as well of, you know, or can this be expanded and how is the best to do that without oversaturating, so law enforcement is not oversaturated with envelopes and has to remember what they all are. So we have to have that consideration as well.
One thing, if I might suggest that, it's easy for me to say, just go do this, but this seems like would be a great idea for a panel at conferences like the National Conference of State Legislatures, and Representative Aguilar mentions cities and towns. They have the League of Cities and Towns has an incredible conference every summer. But maybe, you know, it's a way to disseminate information fast, get pluses, minuses, feedback, good and bad. But it just seems like this might be a good topic for the next of those two conferences if we can pull it together. All right. Do we have any other questions? If not, I really appreciate you're taking the time for this. It was a very good conversation. I think we learned a lot, and again, I think this is it's a good program. I like it. When the last month we had a program led by Commissioner Post about legislation that came forward to help eliminate racist deed restrictions that are on some of these older deeds. They're not enforceable, but they're still there. But that was brought forward by a single constituent, elevated up, became a law, got signed, and is now we're able to do something about that. And so I really appreciate the father who brought this forward, and he wasn't a part of this conversation, but I hope Representative Aguilar and Senator Bravo pass on to him the type of impact he's having. It's really inspiring to me. It's why I got into government work to try to help make a difference in people's lives, and so I really feel like that this is one of those programs that we can sleep at night when we know we're doing work like this that might have an impact in somebody's life in a positive way. So.
Yeah, Commissioner Sherritt, I just want to say thank you too for the conversation. I really appreciate, this is being presented by the Commission of African American Affairs. And so it seems only right to center the talk into this discussion, and the talk that many of us have to have, not only with our boys, but also our girls, right? Being Black in America, driving while Black is something that we call it all the time. And so having this envelope is definitely helpful for not only those who are neurodivergent on the spectrum, but also who are neurodivergent in other ways. I don't know if we can advance forward talks about possibly putting something on the envelope that could determine what kind of neurodiversity situation you are dealing with. There's people who have traumatic brain injuries. There's people who have living with epilepsy, and those lights could trigger a seizure, and that could be concerning for law enforcement as well. So exposing the fact that this is a frightening situation on both sides, I think, is very beneficial and helpful for all of us here So I just want to say thank you, everyone, for sharing your time and your wisdom with us and for advancing this program here in the state of Arizona, because it is very helpful. And we see and saw that we might need one for those who have hearing impairment as well, based off of the situation that occurred last week. So does anybody have any final thoughts before we close out the webinar tonight?
Well, Tiffany, just because you brought it up, I think that was the last conversation that we were having of like, if you're just, at a park, and then law enforcement comes up to you, like how are you able to identify that? And we had a long conversation about that. And yeah, there's a lot more conversations that need to take place. And I had brought it up with the AG's office, and I think they were interested in getting into that conversation as well, with law enforcement. So there are people talking about furthering these issues. It's just very hard to come to a solution where everyone's on the same page.
Yeah,
it's
thank you
sort of
for exposing
politics.
that. Sorry. Thank you for exposing the challenge and getting these out there as well. So we appreciate all of the efforts that you all are doing as electeds here in Arizona, pushing these forward for us and for the people. And it's just inspiring that you've been able to get this done, through without legislation, but it's pushing forward, and everybody seems like they're happy about it and excited to bring this to the community. So I'm grateful. We're grateful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you all once again. And we got out in 1 hour. So let's
end
Thank
it
you.
there.
Nice meeting everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night,
All right.
everyone.
Take care, everybody.